The northern prison area carries an ambience similar to that of the wine cellar. The mother could not fit through the hole, and the child did not have its chipper with her, so she most likely did her best digging on by hand. The passage splits at one point, showing that there were some trials and error in finding a way out. It seems she was able to escape through a weak point in the wall. From that point on, there was not just weak structure, but the humble beginning of a tunnel system to be exploited. It was surely covered up by some loose rocks. I have a feeling that the gatherers did this basic thing as a short-term solution. A rolled-up rug seems almost out of place. This is the other side of the locked gate with the padlock, where the prison guard patrolled not long ago. A set of stairs leads into the prison kitchen, where servants would prepare hopefully something remotely edible, although I have the feeling that prisoners were starved. A human being can sparsely stay alive for a week or two, granted that they at least have access to drinkable water, and they were likely transported away from the temporary confinement by then. The phenomenon scattering Daniel's diary entries finds its way even all the way down here, and at long last, Daniel may learn more about his forgotten past. The entry on the food preparation table discloses his arrival to Altstadt next to Brennenburg Castle. He was advised by the Outrider to stay there until morning before traveling further. This could very well be due to mysterious disappearances in the area, particularly when it's dark. This is where many of Brennenburg's victims came from, and the Outrider gives Daniel some solid advice, lest he might suffer the same fate.
2nd of August, 1839. I have arrived at the village of Altstadt. It's a haven in the midst of a vast forest and the last stop before my final destination, Castle Brennenburg. It's late in the evening, and the Outrider, who has been with the coach since Bremen, advised me to wait until morning before I venture further. I've arranged for a bed at Der Müller, the village's only inn, and am now waiting for the sun to rise. I try to sleep, but as I close my eyes, I see the men who fell victim in London. My fear and shame forces me to witness the same scenes over and over. They are dead because of me.
Daniel is so far unaware of the folklore regarding gatherers, but he is well aware of his nyctophobia, his intense fear of the dark. Was it not for the Outrider's recommendation, Daniel likely would have carried on through the dark woods despite of his fears. He is at a point where his guilt is overpowering him, and he fails to grab some sleep at the inn as a result. It also sounds like the Guardian's influence over him plays a role in fueling his guilt, forcing him to witness horrific visions of those who fell victim. Now for a random grammar lesson. The inn which Daniel stopped by was referred to as Der Mühle, based on the German noun meaning mill, like windmill or watermill. However, the article der is only used for masculine nouns. This is a feminine noun, hence the name should be die Mühle. This might be an innocent oversight in the script, although from an immersive standpoint, it might just as well be genuine. German grammar can come off as quite complex, and some few sentences can bend the rules. If local inhabitants would say, "We are going into Mühle," or "We are gehen in die Mühle," the preposition in this context, induces the accusative case of the noun, which would still leave the noun as die Mühle. If, however, for instance, local inhabitants would say, "We are walking around inside the Mühle," or something like this, the German sentence would remain mostly the same, but the preposition in this context, now induces dative, changing the feminine article from die to der. Wir gehen in der Mühle. From an immersive standpoint, it could be that Daniel heard some locals refer to the inn with grammar that would alter the noun and name like this, mistakenly thinking that this is the one and only name. This is extremely far-fetched and not really worthy of a mention. But hey, this is what I'm doing with these videos anyways, so I thought I might as well. Now to dig back into the environment around us. The kitchen is infested with rodents, understandably, as there is food left unattended, or at least it once was considered food for us humans. There is a barrel of hot acid next to pig meat. Pig remains scattered around the barrel suggests that they were dipped in there. If Daniel tests the waters by dipping a pig into the barrel, there will be very little evidence left. Maybe the dissolvent is one way of disposing inedible parts? Daniel chose a bad time to go to the kitchen. Upon exiting, a servant grunt is approaching. He needs to take a U-turn, storm back into the kitchen, and find a place to hide fast. Is the servant looking for fleeing prisoners in general? Is it searching for us specifically, having been ordered to the kitchen? Or was there perhaps too much noise upon exiting the wall? Hiding among the pigs proves to have been a good decision. Sometimes a servant stands motionless for a moment. This could be due to reporting to Alexander using an innate telepathic ability. The existence of this phenomenon will be apparent at a later point in time. The northern prison area is by no means less dangerous than the last, and danger could lurk all around every corner. Daniel must get out of here quickly and discreetly. Moving down and through the corridors should eventually lead to a storage room, and upon ascending the set of stairs, a loud thud can be heard. The thuds keep coming from a certain direction at a slow interval. A sudden loud cough, along with a clear, struggling whisper of "Help me," is being exhaled. Help me. It is unclear where this is coming from, but there is a chance that it's a remnant of the past being projected into Daniel's mind, along with a lot of other things. It could also be a call for help from Agrippa in real time. Both Daniel and Agrippa have interacted with the mysterious orbs and subsequently interacted with the Guardian, and may thus have inherited mysterious talents like telepathy, and in Daniel's case, unlocking flashbacks and memories that do not belong to him. Yet another example of this is only moments away. The more Daniel ventures into cell area 3, the louder the thudding becomes. Suddenly, a sound of collapse. The nearby prison cell reveals that the thudding stems from a prisoner, losing their mind from the confinement, possibly aware that he's next in being visited by a violent prison guard. The prisoner has repeatedly banged their head against the rock wall, painting it with blood until finally collapsing. Or at least this is what it sounded like to me. The prison cells all appear unlocked. Perhaps the prisoner had no more energy nor will to live, and for the moment, the cells seem more safe than the halls either way. It could also be, of course, a prison guard slamming a victim against the wall elsewhere, repeatedly until lifeless. Surely, the fierce guard from earlier still roams these halls somewhere, doesn't he? The opposing cell unfolds its events as Daniel enters. The memory reveals an inmate who challenges the reason behind his imprisonment. The inmate is currently being labeled as an arsonist and a murderer due to a casualty, but it is more likely that he did not do anything at all. The fire was most likely started by someone else, even if the inmate might believe that he himself started it on accident.
This? Why? I mean, why? What did I do to deserve this? I mean, it can't be. Do I deserve this? It wasn't my fault. Why did he have to go in there? Don't go into burning houses. He should have known better.
The cell at the end has imprisoned one of Daniel's diary entries. Much like Daniel's fate is imprisoned in the castle. Now is the time for it to be released and read out aloud. Also take note of Alexander's theme playing in the background, as this is the first time Daniel meets Alexander in person.
3rd of August, 1839. I feel like I have fled the world and all its worries. Brennenburg is a majestic creation perched upon a forest-clad hill with towers reaching well above even the highest pine trees. Following the winding road leading to the gates gives the impression of discovering something forgotten, as if journeying with Marco Polo to the hidden Xanadu. Alexander, the Baron, is a peculiar but gracious man. He seems well versed in worldly matters and is not at all as eccentric as I assumed. My room is exquisite, and I'm confident that no hotel for miles could even hope to match it.
An escape from reality this is. Daniel feels well received at Brennenburg Castle. His first impression on Alexander the Baron is overall above expectation. The new arrival gets checked into the guest room by the pleasant back hall. Although once nighttime draws closer, the castle itself feels much more creepy.
As the sun sets on Brennenburg, its fairy tale varnish turns to an eerie gloom. Alexander's strange servants are never far away. They are a quiet lot, and their behavior could only be described as skulking. Alexander seems pleased by my presence. As he puts it, it seems like I got here just in time.
This diary entry marks the first time Daniel spots a gatherer, although he likely knows little about the tales of such at the current time. Their behavior is referred to as skulking, which dictionary.com defines as moving in a stealthy manner and to lie or keeping hiding, as for some evil reason. The word has also made itself into my native language, Norwegian, where it means being entirely absent, although used mostly in the context of skipping school or work for no valid reason. And this is how I personally imagine these servants of Brennenburg, being entirely absent while a guest is in the area. Judging by this text, it is clear that not only were these gatherers not far away in order to serve the Baron, and also keeping an eye on Daniel, but they were also avoiding contact and shying away in order not to seem suspicious. Can you imagine the commotion if Daniel saw the servants for what they were? He would likely be imprisoned on the spot in fear that he'd alarm the authorities, if not ending up in a near catatonic state first. Lastly, the Baron praises Daniel's arrival, saying he got here just in time. The Baron needed an extra hand with various projects increasing in dubious nature over time, and the Gatherers, while ever faithful to their leader, lacked the ability of precision and to handle things with care. But there is an even bigger motive behind the Baron's saying, for he is in need of one of the mysterious orbs in order to achieve his main goal, to return to his own home world, as only the powers of the orb may grant him the path. Going back is not an easy task. A gatherer is passing by. Daniel has to pretend that he's not there. One hidden remnant of Daniel's past is echoing in his mind, yelling, "Get her back!" referring to how he was searching for this little girl in order to bring her back to her cell. What immediately follows is a whole lot more mysterious.
Get her back! Is he safe? Well, it's for his own good.
Alexander can be heard speaking, but I do not think this is a memory. No, this has got to be telepathy. Orders are being broadcast to the gatherers, and for some reason, Daniel is now able to tune in. Is he just now within range? Did the power of the orbs suddenly grant Daniel this ability? What do you think? The message conveyed from Alexander shows a warm side, asking if Daniel is safe. The earlier part of the conversation remains hidden, but I believe that the Baron was ordering his servants to look for Daniel due to causing a commotion earlier, suspecting that he's no longer in on it. The Baron has now sealed himself inside the inner sanctum, but no one can never be too careful. For his own good could also mean Daniel overstepped his boundaries and thus had this coming for him. I believe a gatherer communicated with the Baron after spotting Daniel moments ago, assuring that he is trapped and won't get away. Also keep in mind that the Baron most likely is not aware that Daniel is currently tuning in on the orders and conversation. This will be apparent to the Baron at a later time.
Soon it will be ready. Let there be enough time.
Alexander speaks again, saying that it will be ready, most likely referring to preparations regarding his return to the other world. Let there be enough time might be a simple prayer, but it could also be an order to the servants to ensure that Daniel does not go unnoticed and potentially delay or mess up the project. The Guardian is, after all, growing more impatient by the minute, and it is only a matter of time before even the inner sanctum will be breached by the supernatural entity. An armored prison guard patrols at the far end, displaying its mighty presence. At the same time, a collapse can be heard. This version of the Gatherer can tear down almost anything in their way due to their weapon and immense strength.
He escaped? Where is he now?
The Baron is angered, being aware that he escaped. Again, most likely talking about Daniel, the one he wants to imprison in order to avoid further mischief. Another imprisoned note details what I assume to be the day after arrival. The Baron came into the guest room after hearing Daniel's scream of terror. This event was displayed in the form of a flashback during an earlier episode. The two converse about the orb more in detail, giving Daniel more information as he craved, but he did not like what he heard. Being able to control the orb or not, its guardian would eventually be able to catch up and reclaim it. A dreadful nightmare not fond of theft, killing innocents along the way to prove an example.
4th of August, 1839. The nightmares woke me in the early morning, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Shortly after, there was a knock on my door. Alexander had heard my screams and asked me to join him in the parlor. As we drank our tea, Alexander began to tell me what he knew. It seems like the orb I found casts a long and dark shadow. It's not only a powerful item, but a dangerous one. Simply by touching it, you invoke the powers within, and if you are too weak to control it, it will devour you. The shadow is a sluggish thing, lagging behind the wielder, killing anyone or anything in its path to reclaim the orb. I said I didn't care about its powers and that I should throw it away. Alexander advised against this, as I'd still be a part of the path to the orb and eventually suffer death. Having the orb, I would at least have the chance to fight back when the time came. I asked Alexander what he meant when he said he could protect me, and he answered that things can be done, but at a price.
Daniel is only interested in harmless exhibitions for curiosity and display, and suggested to just throw it away, something that the Baron advised against. The Baron could have proposed to take the orb right away and tell Daniel that everything will be alright, but he had a darker scheme. The Baron is cunning, revealing that Daniel can be saved if he does exactly as he says, without question, starting easy and very slowly lulling him into the dark plot of what Brennenburg Castle truly stands for. The opposing cell has a gatherer in it, and it won't be apparent until an attempt at entering. What the servant was doing in there is unclear. Perhaps he was resting, in a similar manner to the servant in the bigger storage section. Cell Area 4 hosts this tiny storage by comparison. There are not many items of interest in here, although there is a glass container. This can be used to transport some strong acid from the kitchen over to the cistern entrance, which is guarded by a worn padlock. Returning to the prison area, a servant is roaming nearby. Do not let it see you. Most padlocks hanging around are in excellent condition, and without a corresponding key, there is no way to traverse. The other side here is accessible through a different path should one wish to explore, however. We seem to be followed from a distance, as on our way back to the kitchen in order to lend some acid from the barrel container, a growl can be heard upon being cornered. The gatherer seemingly searches the kitchen even more thoroughly, as it lurks even closer to our now dedicated hiding spot. Thankfully, it leaves without a clue, once again. There is a small window that shows a spiraling staircase. This looks similar to a staircase later on, leading to the torture areas, although if it's the same one is rather unclear.
The shadow. It's close now.
The cistern entrance is ahead. Taking a right turn and venturing further into the prison unleashes a flashback. The young escapee has been spotted, and Daniel reaches out with a warm intent, honestly believing that a temporary confinement would be much more safe than outside, maybe even fearing that anyone leaving would fall victim to the Guardian of the Orbs. Listen closely to the flashback and you will hear the girl running for and opening a door. The sound of flowing water suggests that the girl attempted to flee out the cistern entrance and that this was unlocked at the time. The door closes, but they are still in the prison. This might be the point where she did a U-turn, ran for the elevator, and eventually ended up in the big storage.
Hey, you! Stop!
Don't come any closer! I just want to leave!
You can't go outside! It's too dangerous!
I'm telling Gabriel!
I doubt that very much.
Sadly, the girl speaks the words that trigger an uphill trip of insanity and rage for Daniel. This cold-blooded chase, ending in an unspeakable act, will be the turning point where Daniel stops lying to himself while realizing that he has been tricked by Alexander's mental games, ultimately breaking down and being unable to do anything anymore. He acknowledges everything in pure. His damn curiosity of the mysterious orbs, his assistance with the evil deeds done upon poor souls who were not at all criminals after all. The only thing fueling him after that point in time is his rage to bring the Baron to justice, but more on that will be saved for later. This dead end leads to the closed gate next to the tiny storage. A gatherer is suddenly lurking nearer. Once again, Daniel is cornered. The wooden door is locked, and the only hope remaining are the crates and barrels stocked up here to hide direct line of sight, should the stalker peek around the corner. The cistern entrance is equipped with a degraded padlock. The acid should be able to further weaken it just enough to ruin its integrity, so that a tap with a hammer and chipper breaks it apart. This does not go unnoticed, so better hurry up. There are gatherers in this area, and a loud sound would naturally mark a point of interest for them. Daniel is getting dangerously close to the inner sanctum, although only by a normal traversal route. Since most straightforward routes are inaccessible, there is still a long and not least dangerous path ahead. And I am sorry to say this, Daniel, but it is going to take a turn for the worse. From this point onward, there will be more focus on insanity and disturbing events. A soundtrack will play, indicating the 2/3 mark of the game being reached. The last time a third was reached, we were introduced to the back hall hub area and its peaceful sanctuary after a rather dangerous and stressy section. The cistern hub area may have a similar calming effect, having a partially soothing soundtrack and the environment feeling somewhat safe. There is also both fresh air and light supplied through the open-top structure. But no place in Amnesia the Dark Descent is truly safe, is it? This marks the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching and have a pleasant night.